Why someone need to consider having gold allocation in his portfolio? Christian, let's start with gold.
Thank you, Alessandro, and thank you for inviting me here today. It's a very good question, and one that we kind of address often when we speak to clients and institutional investors in the market. So the big question is why have an allocation to gold? Well, there are three key points that I would like to make. The first is returns. So many investors see that gold has no yield, it pays no dividend, it pays no coupon like a bond or a stock, and because of this they assume that it has no return, and that's not the case. If you look at the data from 1971 when gold became free floating, we actually see that gold returned on average about 11% in US dollar terms every year. So it's certainly something that can assist with the returns over the longer period. And that's actually in line with many commodities and stock indices that we've seen over a very similar period. The second point I'd like to make is diversification. Now, most investors agree that diversification is important when making their investments and risk management, but effective diversifiers are actually quite difficult to find. When market stress and uncertainty increases, we find that correlations tend to increase, which means that assets tend to move together. But gold stands apart from other assets in this respect, in that it tends to have a negative correlation, say, to equities, and that negative correlation actually becomes even stronger the further the equities tends to drop. So it tends to produce that portfolio protection exactly when investors need it. The final point is liquidity. Now, gold is an incredibly large and global market, and because of that, it's incredibly liquid. So on average, gold traded around 149 billion euros per day over 2020, and that's across spot and OTC derivatives and futures contracts. Now, if we add gold-backed ETFs to that, that's an additional source of liquidity. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the scale and the depth of the gold market means it can accommodate very large institutional buy and hold investors. And it also means that in times of crisis, that liquidity does not tend to dry up. So it means that that makes gold a far less volatile asset than many other diversifiers you may see out there. So those are some of the key reasons why we make the argument that gold can bring benefits to a portfolio, and how a strategic allocation can actually help improve risk-adjusted returns.